So let's get started. Thank you again for everybody who's logging in. Thanks for joining me wherever you're at. As you can tell, I'm not at home, and I've been on the road now for a week and a half. Me and my lovely wife are celebrating our 1 year anniversary. I'm headed back to DC soon. You can tell by the sun that I've gotten on my face, and I may or may not have done a little fishing out on the road in Central America. We're headed back soon. It's been really good to hang out with the folks down here and spend some time away, but while keeping up with all the crazy shit going on back in Washington, D.C. We're headed back there in a couple days. And I just want to take a minute because there's been a lot of discussion about redistricting. We're going to hit on two topics today. The first is redistricting, and the second are what I talk about, which is a lot of what I'm seeing in some new candidates that are jumping out and running for office this year. But the first thing is this redistricting. And I need folks to understand, I'm not just going to talk about gerrymandering, what Texas and California are doing with redistricting. It's a part of the problem. But it's also, there's a larger thing I want us to think about, and I want folks to be talking about online that I think is totally being missed. Is sure, Donald Trump called Texas and said, we need to add more congressional seats for Republicans and take 5 seats away from Democrats and give them to Republicans. And for those of you at home, you could say, well, how is that even possible? Well, every 10 years, we redraw lines, and the state legislatures redraw the lines. And normally, whatever state legislature's in charge draws lines that are favorable to them. That's just the way the game is played. If you don't like that, win more elections and get control of state parties and state legislatures, is what I should say. But what's really unprecedented is doing it in the middle of a 10-year cycle. That's not normally done. It's being challenged in the court. There'll be lots of challenges because this is supposed to happen every 10 years after we count people in the census. We count people every 10 years so that we can reapportion congressional seats. Our forefathers set up the House of Representatives to be reflective of the way people are feeling pretty immediately. And let me get a little nerdy on you. What I mean by that is the reason that Congress, all of Congress, is up for election every 2 years is so that they can really have their hand on the pulse of America. The forefathers did this on purpose so that if something happened quickly, people could react quickly. It's the people's house. There's the same amount of people in every congressional seat. I'm getting back to the reapportionment now. And that's why we reapportion every 10 years to make sure every state has the equal amount based off their population of Congress people. And every state at least has one congressperson except for DC where I live or Puerto Rico because they're not states. But the point I'm making is it's supposed to be something that's very reactionary to the to the will of the people. So if there's a stock market boom, if there's a housing bubble crisis, if there's a war, people can immediately, within 2 years, there's going to be an election for Congress and they can react. Now, the Senate is the bass-backward opposite of that. They were set up to represent the states and to be more thoughtful and to represent the will of the state, not the people. And you could say the people are the state, and that's true. But that's why a senator is only reelected every 6 years. Now, I know a lot of you know this, and you're like, Chuck, why are you getting into all of this schoolhouse rock and I'm a bill and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill and all that bullshit? Well, I'm going to get to that point, and it has to do with redistricting. I promise this is water. And what I mean by that is we've started taking away the fundamental purpose of the United States House of Representatives. And what I mean by that is there's 435 congressional seats. There's always just 435. They may move around because of reapportionment and add seats where people are moving to, like Florida, Texas, and Arizona, which is happening, while states like New York and Pennsylvania and others lose seats because folks are dying there and they're moving to warmer places. That's part of reapportionment. That's fair, legal, and that's the way it's supposed to work. But what's not supposed to work is doing that in the middle of that cycle. The other piece of that is of the 435 seats, only about 30, 35 of them are marginal. And let me stop there and explain what I'm saying. Marginal congressional seat is a seat that is, let's just say for shits and giggles, half Democrat, half Republican. There's a primary on each side to see which Democrat and which Republican are going to be the representative of the two-party system. And then they run against each other in November. That's a marginal seat. Now, of the 435 seats that are in Congress, only about 35 of them are truly marginal. And the way I personally identify marginal is plus or minus 5 points. What that means is it's not more than 5% Democrat or 5% Republican in the performance of that seat over the last few cycles. And that's how we determine whether we're actually going to spend money and work in a congressional seat. That means, this is the important part of what I'm getting to about redistricting that nobody's talking about, is that means there's 400 safe seats. What does that mean, Chuck? A safe seat. That means Democrats or Republicans of those 400 people, and let's just say that it's evenly split, and it is just about evenly split, of 200 safe Democratic seats and 200 safe Republican seats, is those folks never, write this down, these folks never have to worry about a general election in November of the opposing party because it's a safe Democratic seat if you're a Democrat, or it's a safe Republican seat. Now, the only really opposition to them and their power in those safe seats is somebody running against them in a Republican primary or a Democratic primary, all depending on if it's a safe R or safe D seat. And if it's a safe Republican seat, then you're worried about somebody primarying you, let's say, because you're not Donald Trump enough, or you're not MAGA enough, or that you're whatever, other Republicans being mad at you for some reason to where they would run somebody against you. It's hard to do because incumbents in those seats that are serving in Congress have the backing of corporations, they have the backing of lobbyists, they have plenty of money, and it's hard to beat an incumbent. But this is not just for Republicans. Democrats are the same. If there's a safe Democratic seat, a Republican cannot beat them in a general election. And the only way they could get beaten is if they're beating in their primary. And that means maybe they're not liberal enough, or they're not Bernie Sanders enough, or maybe they're not conservative enough if they're already very liberal. So the point I'm making, boys and girls, which is really important that nobody's talking about, I keep going back to this, is that there's no incentive with such few marginal seats for those 400 safe Democrats or safe Republicans to work together to try to pass some law. It's better for them if they oppose everything that the other party's doing because they want to show that they're base Democrats or base Republicans, that they're standing for the party more so than the people. Because they don't have to look for middle ground to actually get something done because they're not worried about having the other party need to vote for them because they get elected in their primary. And remember, there's no general election. Normally, there's somebody not even running against them from the other party because it is such a safe seat. And because of that, we're in the position that we're in right now of getting nothing done in Congress and everybody running to their partisan corners. Now, think about everything I just said and think about the way we started this conversation about redistricting. Because of what Donald Trump has done and said we need to get 5 more seats in the middle of the cycle from Democrats and do away with those seats in Texas because he's worried about the reelection in the midterms because the big bullshit bill is so unpopular. He knows he needs more seats that are Republican to try to have a chance to keep the House for the off cycle. Because historically in U.S. elections, the party out of power from the White House in the first midterm elections picks up a lot of seats, the opposition party, if you will. So Donald Trump's trying to pad, and the Republicans are trying to pad their numbers by adding these seats in Texas. And then what California does, and I don't blame California, is they stand up and go, well, if you're going to do that in Texas, then we're going to do the same thing and bring in and change 5 Republican seats to Democratic seats in California. And then it goes into Missouri, where the Republicans in Missouri are like, we're going to get rid of a Democratic seat. There's only 2 Democratic seats in Missouri. And then Democrats may do that in another state. And so this thing starts, it's a snowball effect. But the point that nobody's really talked about, and I keep saying that for a reason, is that what they're doing is eliminating even more marginal seats to where there'll be almost no marginal seats left in Congress that are 50-50 districts, to where somebody would have to worry about working with the other party to actually get something done. And I think that that's bad for our democracy. Back in the 80s and the 70s and the 90s and the 2000s, you had to work with the opposition party because there was 40, 50, 60 marginal seats. So you'd have your base seats of maybe 150 Democratic safe seats and 150 safe Republican seats. And it still leave you with like 50, 60, 70, 80 seats that were marginal where you actually can get some cooperation because you needed to make both Democrats and Republicans happy to actually win elections, showing you were getting something done. But girls and boys, we are totally eliminating that out of the lexicon of American politics by all this redistricting, by taking marginal seats and making them safe Democrat or Republicans where you don't have to work with the opposition party to get anything done. And if you think about the U.S. Senate, which is much different than the U.S. House, you need 60 votes to actually get it to the floor. And that's never going to happen in this scenario, not mixing the House and the Senate stuff. But I wanted to raise that for that reason, is that nobody's talking about the way we're eliminating marginal seats. Now, Democrats, who are the party of fairness and trying to be above the board on quote unquote fair redistricting. And for folks who want to step to me that are Republicans, are like, well, you gerrymander in New York and you gerrymander in Illinois and you gerrymander in Oregon. Sure. And Democrats control those state houses, just like Republicans who control state houses in Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida gerrymander all the time. But they do it every 10 years when it's legal to gerrymander. I mean, I'm not going to tell you when you have power not to use that power. That's just stupid. But it was funny when I was looking back at all the states that Democrats control to see if there was actually places like California where you can redraw the map if we wanted to. It's funny that good old Democrats had put in nonpartisan commissions to try to do away with gerrymandering, where in every Republican state, they never do that. They're like, nope, we're going to gerrymander. We're going to gather all the power we can get, while Democrats are like, well, we don't want to gerrymander. We want to do the right thing. And I'm down with that. And that's good for democracy. But look where that's gotten us today. You know, that's us Democrats showing up at a fist fight with a policy book saying we want to be above the board and be the good people. And we do. And I admire us for doing that, but it puts us in a position where we don't even have a chance or really a reason to fight back. Gavin Newsom, who wants to fight back, has to literally take the maps where he can get the 5 new seats and take it before his voters because he's mandated to, because they've tried to do away with partisan gerrymandering in California to show fairness, which is I'm down with. And I think that that's nice and cool, but it's not like a Republican state where they don't play that bullshit. And they're like, no, we can gerrymander anytime. We've taken the people out of any of these conversations and we gerrymander anyway. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out there so you kind of understood what this gerrymandering really means and what it really means to Congress for the next couple of cycles. If all this gerrymandering goes through now and the Republicans end up redrawing 7 or 8, 9 more Republican districts and getting rid of that many Democratic seats, and the Democrats in California, maybe a state or others, do away with 5 or 6 Republican seats and make them Democratic seats. The one thing that all of this has done is made the Congress way more partisan, whether you like it or not. It's just what's happening. And it's going to make it harder and harder to get anything done in Congress. And I am not here advocating for not doing an eye for an eye. I'm not going to be that guy that's above the board on democracy and we shouldn't do it if they're doing it. No, if they're going to do it, we should try to compete and do it just as much back. But I'm just telling you, for the long term, this is eliminating marginal seats where the folks in power there have a gumption to try to work with the other side to get things done for people, not for their party. So keep that in mind. And speaking of party, it's kind of led me to the second part of this conversation. And the second part of this conversation today is around a lot of amazing candidates that I'm seeing bubble up. What do I mean by bubble up? It means like, let me think about the right way to put this. What I mean is every day in every cycle, there's always been, I've been doing this for over 35 years. Every cycle, remember how I said Congress is very susceptible to the will of the people because we have elections every 2 years. So there are things that happen where Democrats or Republicans underperform with an electorate the cycle before, and they try to make up for that in the preceding cycle, the one that's coming up. I remember when the flavor of the month was making sure we found veterans to run for Congress. Now, has veterans always run for Congress? Yes. Are veterans great candidates? Absolutely, they are. But I remember during the Iraq War when lots of veterans were against the war, like me and lots of others, and they ran for Congress, and they were outstanding. Connor Lamb, Ruben Gallego, I can go on and on. Vote Vets was started. Like they were the flavor of the month and continue to be, and they're great. Uh, After the veterans who had and continue to do a great job, Mikey Sherrill, who's running in New Jersey, Spanberger in Virginia, all of these are the same. Great candidates. So, but that was a flavor, and I think Democrats were intentionally trying to do. I remember after Citizens United and the money thing coming down, where the flavor of the month was what we called self-funders. Democrats who were rich businessmen or had made a lot of money, could have been in Silicon Valley, it could have been wherever, but they had a lot of means. They became the candidate and the flavor of the month because they didn't have to fundraise as much. They could put in $500,000 of their own money. And they were good Democrats. They were rich people that were on our side. But I remember when this happened, there was a lot of self-funders. And there are still some self-funders running today. But that was at some point the end thing to be was a self-funder. And that was a lot of who we were recruiting to run as Democrats. I remember after Citizens United, not Citizens United, but after Roe v. Wade and all the stuff with the Supreme Court, and even before then, going back to around the veterans' time when soccer moms were the flavor of the month. We wanted to do better with women and suburban housewives in the suburbs of Philadelphia, the suburbs of Detroit, the suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona. And there were all these amazing women running. I tell you all of that to say that I've noticed a pattern. And it's something that I'm super excited about, but I'm also a little nervous about, and I want to speak to it. And that is this notion that Democrats need help with working people. And what I mean by that is we've been getting our ass handed to us by working blue collar men and women. They have been moving to Donald Trump. They've been moving the Republican Party. And now you're seeing it with working class brown and black men, especially, but some of our women as well are moving to the right. And so the Democratic Party knows that they have a problem with Joe Lunchbucket, uh, Susie whatever, like folks who work with their hands, folks who get dirty every day, folks who have a 9 to 5, folks who have to shower after work is the way I like to put it. And because Democrats know that, you're starting to see this phenomenon of regular folks with these amazing flashy videos announcing their run for Congress, their run for the Senate. And I think it's a good thing. I think that the oyster shucker up in Maine is going to be a great candidate. I love how he talks. He sounds a lot like me with a little bit of a gruff voice. I like the Teamster firefighter in Eastern Pennsylvania who's running in Pennsylvania 7. The brother in Nebraska who's the steam fitter who was running last time for the Senate as an independent. I think he's doing amazing work. I think there's lots of these. I saw yesterday the Scranton mayor is running. I think all these regular people running, if they can raise the money, I think we'll do a good job. Here's the point of caution I would give to the Democrats, though. The one thing that I've noticed is that around all of these working class candidates is there's not any working class consultants, and they can come up with a great launch video. And I give them prep and I give them all their flowers because they're damn good videos, because they're damn good consultants. I ain't got nothing against a consulting firm who ain't never got their hands dirty. But these overeducated, mainly white folks, there's no black or brown people involved in any of these campaigns at the ownership level of these firms. That concerns me. It concerns me that there are union candidates running, but nobody on their team ever been in a union besides to shoot a TV commercial. Nobody who's ever had calluses or got their hands dirty. Nobody who's ever understood what a callus was in their life. It doesn't make them bad people. But if you run the same campaign over and over again, whether you're the woman candidate, the self-funder, or the veteran, as you do as the blue collar or a working class woman or man, it's just another narrative. We have to completely change the way that we're doing campaigns if we want to win. Putting a flannel shirt on somebody and getting them to roll their sleeve up just short of their elbow and cuss a little bit is not going to get it done. People can see through that. The part of campaign strategy that we're missing is actually showing up and talking to working people. If you just, as a working candidate, raise a lot of money and buy a lot of TV commercials and leave out the targeting and your digital atmosphere of actually reaching workers that are non-prime voters, then you're not going to win. And I think that they should win. And again, this is not a critique of the candidates. I think these candidates have showed a lot of guts to run. And I think each one of them can win. But when it comes down, and I'm doing this far in advance so I can tell the consultants and the candidates, don't listen to DC and New York media consultants and polling consultants who tell you who to talk to and how to talk to them. This is to you, the candidate. You know more about working people. Hell, you've forgotten more about fucking working people than they will ever know. Follow your gut. You know how to talk to people and you know who to go talk to. When they tell you that you shouldn't waste time talking to Latino voters or to black people because they're the base vote, that's just wrong. And you should start talking to those people early and often and not follow the same thing in the same campaign that these consultants have run over and over again. People give me lots of credit and lots of props for what I did for Bernie Sanders or what I did for Ruben Gallego. And they both overperform with working class people. They both overperform with Latinos. They overperform with Republicans, especially Republican men. And it wasn't because of, and none of these people were working class heroes when they started. Bernie Sanders was not some blue collar guy riding a tractor. And neither was Ruben Gallego, who graduated from Harvard, even though he did grow up very, very poor. These folks became that because they were true to who they were as people. And when a consultant, and I've seen this so many times in both of these campaigns, whether it was Bernie or Ruben, stood up and a consultant said, we can't do that because those people don't vote, or we can't do that. That's too much of a risk. Somebody could get hurt or something could happen. Well, Ruben and Bernie, or me as a general consultant on both of those, could stand up and go, no, we need to do that. If we actually want to show up where the men are, if we want to go into the casino or into the hotel where these women are actually working and have these conversations about issues that they care about, showing up early, and then delivering a message around working class issues to make you sound like a working class champion, because you will be, because they believe in that, but they don't know that in the beginning. You can be the largest and the biggest working class champion on paper. But if you're not delivering that message to that worker on their cell phone or on a digital ad or on a phone call or on a radio ad, targeted in the right way, it's the same thing when a tree falls in the woods. Nobody's going to know you anything other than the oyster shucker who had a great launch video. So let's make sure that we finish that. It was funny that I was talking to somebody this week about AOC, and they were like, how did AOC overperform with Latino workers when she first ran? And I worked for AOC back then, and I work for her now on her campaign stuff. I'm not one of her regular consultants, just on her campaign team. It's because she surrounds herself at that local level with workers. She surrounds herself and her staff with regular people. Some went to college, some didn't, some went to junior college. It's not the elite consultant class. It's the same with Bernie and Ruben and lots of others, Gabe Vasquez. There's a lot of working class champions out there, but they all have one thing in common. They got a lot of working class people around them. And I think that's what concerns me the most. This ain't about me and Chuck Rocha getting hired. It's about me really wanting to help these people win because I think they're amazing candidates and I think they can win. I'm just trying to stop them a year in advance from falling into a hole because what I found with candidates, especially first time candidates, is that they don't know no better. So when a consultant tells them they should do this or they should not do that, they just believe them lock, stock, and barrel. And when they believe them lock, stock, and barrel, they're afraid to go against their own instincts, or they're afraid that their own instincts are wrong because the consultant is telling them that they're wrong, and they've never run for office, so they assume that they're right. I'm here to tell you, candidate, you're going to be right more than the consultant. The reason Ruben Gallego was so good is that he was a consultant himself. I get to take a lot of credit for the work that he did, and some of which were my ideas, but they were mainly Ruben's ideas that I helped make come to fruition. That's hard to do, and most candidates don't have the intestinal fortitude to actually push back. And I'm telling you, push back. Run that campaign that you think you should run to actually show up in the morning at work sites, to show up and actually spend money talking to infrequent voters early and often. These are the things I want to talk about more on the Substack because these are the things that I think the party's missing the most. We can have the perfect candidate, but we surround them with the same group of consultants that's gotten us in the trouble that we're in right now. And I ain't got no beef with any of them. They're good consultants. Let's just say ain't many of them got their hands dirty in a long time. And folks talk shit on me because I talk a lot of shit. Just because I've gotten my hands dirty and had people literally put their hands on me most of my life. And that makes me be a better consultant because I'm more connected to regular folks. And when I see regular folks putting out a great launch ad and running for Congress or the Senate, I get really excited. I get excited because I would love to have a Congress that had way more working women and working men in it. And just take this as some friendly advice. And just that you are smarter than you think. And I promise you, you're smarter than your consultant. And that's coming from a consultant. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'll be back in DC in about 48 hours. I look forward to catching up with everybody then. Don't forget to subscribe to the Rocha Revolution. Don't forget to share this with your friends. And until next time, we out.